Hello, I am so excited from my head to my toes that you are here with us today. Today we are going to make one of my favorite go-to summer recipes. It's an heirloom tomato sauce. You can use it for pizza, for pasta, pretty much I use it even for tomato soup. So because tomatoes, we live in Sacramento, and our climate is perfect for growing amazing tomatoes. They love dry, hot weather, and that's exactly what we have here. So in fact, fun fact, a lot of the canned tomato products that you eat anywhere in the country, and in fact, probably in the world, are coming right out of California because our weather is so perfect for growing the most delicious tomatoes. So we get flooded with tomatoes, and no better way to use them up than to put them into a pasta sauce. So I'm going to show you how, and I'm going to do it all live in front of you to show you how easy it is. So the first thing we're going to do, I'm going to get this moving, and then we'll talk tomatoes as it's cooking down. So I'm going to take my heirloom tomatoes. You can use any tomato. You don't have to use an heirloom tomato. We're just fancy here in Sacramento. Like I said, we have access to such great tomatoes that we can even afford to put them in our pasta sauce. I got these, all of our farmers markets are bursting with fresh tomatoes right now. I got these from Route 64 in Sacramento, but Oak Park Farmers Market, downtown, I mean, anywhere you go, Central Farmers Market, all of them are gonna be really loaded with tomatoes this time of year. So I'm just gonna cut them in huge chunks. I'm gonna take these sort of rough, these rough spots off, and literally throw them away, and just cut my tomatoes into chunks. So here's that sort of rough spot that you're talking about. So that heirloom tomatoes tend to not be very pretty, but the flavor of them you cannot beat. There is no more delicious tomato than an heirloom tomato. They're just these old-fashioned varieties that our farmers grow. Look at the color. That is a gorgeous tomato. And they just, like I said, the flavors are so robust. They're, each one has its own, some are sweeter, some are meatier. They just all have a unique flavor. No two are alike, but in this sauce, they're gonna blend together to create the taste of heaven. So, like I said, we just quickly, roughly chop. There's another one of those little weird, I don't know what those are called, but we throw that part in the compost bowl and the rest goes in. And so a lot of times people are afraid of tomato sauce because you often see people that are actually peeling the skin off the tomato, which is not hard, but it's just one more thing to have to learn and one more thing to have to deal with. I find that making the sauce this way eliminates that process, and so I get my tomato sauce faster, and it makes me want to make tomato sauce more often. So I don't peel them, and you don't have to. You do, I think, if you are going to be like properly canning them, but we're not canning this sauce. This is a sauce that you can throw into the freezer, and you can, I mean, frankly, it won't make it that long in my house. I just, like I said, I'll just eat it like tomato soup, and it'll be gone in days at my house. I turn it into everything. So look at this. Isn't that beautiful? This is what we have access to, and they're so affordable in Sacramento this time of year because the farmers are just literally drowning in them. And so it's a great way to make a super affordable sauce that will give you tons of meals. You're not going to get one meal out of this. You're going to get many, many meals. So just look at the color. Isn't it pretty? All those yellow with the red running through. Absolutely gorgeous. And they taste as good as they look, if not better. All right, so we're gonna throw in about 5 tomatoes. If I was at home, I'd be doing all these, but for the purposes of this video, I won't make you watch me chop tomatoes all day. But I I would do the whole batch and make sauce out of those. And you know, if you're gonna do the work, you may as well do it all at once. So, and then you don't have to chop these in any particular way because you're gonna end up throwing these into one big pot, and you are gonna use an immersion blender to cook them all up. So really doesn't matter the size. I just rough chop everything. Throw it into my stock pot, which I'll show you in a minute. Peel my onion. Peel that skin off. And that's literally all you have to do. You're gonna use the whole thing. And if I was using all this, I'd use a much larger onion. We're gonna throw some garlic in there, same thing. You don't really have to chop it too much because we are gonna be using our immersion blender to blend everything up. So we're just gonna, and in fact, I'm gonna get this. So I've got my tomato and my onion all in my big stock pot. I'm gonna throw a little bit of olive oil, a couple of tablespoons on there. You can find this recipe at foodliteracycenter.org/recipes, and you can print it. So I put a couple tablespoons of olive oil in there. Then I'm gonna put it on my burner on high because we want to get that boiling. So as that's bringing itself up to a boil, I'm gonna peel my garlic and just kind of roughly chop it. It doesn't need to be any fancy style. And then get that in my pot. All right, that is how easy it is. We're gonna add spices. You can pretty much add whatever makes you happy. So at this point, because it's on this heat, we want to add all of our dry spices. We're gonna save fresh till the very end. So I like mine spicy, so I'm gonna put in crushed red pepper flakes. And however spicy you like yours, I like mine pretty spicy. So I'm gonna put in plenty. You can measure it according to the recipe that we have at foodliteracycenter.org/recipes. Or you can just eyeball it based on what makes you happy. So black pepper, I don't want to end up spilling too much of that into mine, so I'm gonna measure that one. That can be real strong and take over. So, oh, can you hear it? It's starting to sizzle in there a little. I love fennel seed in here. I think it's that special flavor that makes a pasta sauce a pasta sauce. So I can smell it. It hits my nose. Fennel also grows wild along our American River. So these flavors absolutely go together. What grows together goes together, as they say. So I'm gonna add a little fennel seed. I'm also at the end gonna put in fresh basil, fresh oregano, and some salt. But we are just gonna stir it a little bit as it starts to get going. And it's literally, the tomatoes are just gonna start to cook down really quickly because I've got it on a high heat. Again, I'll show you what's happening in this pot. So it's just bubbling along. So the tomatoes will begin to cook pretty quickly because they're very soft and they're mostly wet. And so they'll start to cook very quickly. I can already hear it bubbling. So that's how fast this begins to go. So we're gonna leave that on. We're also gonna add in a little bit some tomato paste for thickening it. If I wasn't using fresh oregano, which I am, I grow this in my garden. So if I wasn't using fresh right now, I would add the dry oregano, which I also have dried some from my garden. So this would be the time to add that, but I'm gonna add it fresh since I do have that from my garden. So let's talk about tomatoes while this is cooking. So we always know, we teach our kids that the difference between a fruit and a vegetable is that fruits have seeds and vegetables don't. But what about our friend tomato? When we cut into a tomato, I'll cut this one because I want to eat it. I love these green ones. These are green zebras. They are delicious. When you cut into a tomato, you can see that it has seeds. So botanically, that makes it a fruit. But why are there so many vegetables that are filled filled with seeds like an avocado or an eggplant or a pepper, but we call them vegetables. So there are culinary vegetables, and then there are botanical vegetables. So botanically, if it has seeds, it's a fruit. But in the kitchen, we often use many of these fruits as vegetables. And the tomato, fun fact, was actually declared by the US Supreme Court as a vegetable. Farmers really wanted it declared as a vegetable, and they went to court to make that happen. So legally, a tomato is a vegetable. So when you're eating your fruits and vegetables, you're kind of eating both with a tomato. So that's what a tomato looks like on the inside. Now, storing your tomatoes. I'm going to give this guy a stir. I wish you could smell it. The garlic and the onion are hitting the heat. It's filling my nose. It is so brilliant in here. I'll let that cook down a little bit more. So, tomatoes. Storing a tomato. You should not store tomatoes in the fridge if you can avoid that, because it affects the flavor of the tomato. So you'll actually keep that more robust flavor if you keep them at room temperature. And if you do have to store them in the fridge for some reason, make sure that you bring them down to room temperature before you eat them, because you will lose a lot of the flavor. You can, at room temperature or straight off the vine, even when they're warm, you can taste the individual flavors of all the tomatoes so much more clearly. So try to store them at room temperature. Also, the thing about tomatoes, especially these heirloom tomatoes, that's so different from the kind that you're going to find at the grocery store, is that they don't want to be stored on their butts like that, because look at the size of this guy here. We'll use this as an example. This is a heavy tomato. I'm guessing this tomato alone is more than a pound. So when they grow on the vine, they're hanging like this. This is the strongest part of the tomato here. This core is where they're strong and sturdy. This part on the bottom is where they're very delicate, like a top of a baby's head. So we don't want to store all the weight of this tomato on technically its head, but it's its butt. So we want to store the tomato upside down. You'll see that I displayed some right side up because they're cute and they're tinier, but these big guys, you really want to make sure you are storing them upside down, because otherwise they'll start to crush themselves and they'll split, they'll crack open, and you will damage that tomato. So storing them upside down, I put a napkin on my countertop and then I line them up that way, and then also when they're out on display, I go, oh, I'm making a sandwich. Let me grab a tomato and slice a big slab of tomato on there. So you'll remember that you have them. And if you put them in the fridge, you might forget. Although I don't know how you could forget an heirloom tomato. So now our pot is bubbling and it is ready to go. So I basically bring it up to a boil. Everything gets nice and soft in there. I'll show you what's happening. So the tomatoes are starting to cook down to a liquid. Everything's getting a little bubbly. The onions are starting to get soft and more translucent. So now I'm going to pull this off the heat, turn off my heat. If I wasn't doing a live video, I might let it go a little bit longer. But what we can do is put it back on the heat. So now I've got my basically cooked tomatoes. I'm going to take a can of tomato paste. The reason I do this is it makes the sauce thicker. I like a thicker sauce. Some people will keep their tomatoes on the stovetop and just let them cook at a low simmer for hours to make it thicker. This is the faster way to do that. And canned tomato paste is like 39 cents to 50 cents a can. It's really affordable, so I use that. Now I'm going to take fresh basil. And I want a lot. I love basil. So I'm just going to throw the fresh basil leaves. I've already rinsed these. This is also from my garden. What grows together goes together. I'm going to take all the yummy leaves. Just pop those in there. So good. I can smell everything hitting my nose right now. And so look at how fast we are making something that you could eat for lunch right away. I like to, make a couple of quesadillas and sit down with my bowl of fresh tomato soup, eat that right away. And then I put the rest into jars and I use that for pasta, pizza for days until it's gone. And then I'm also going to add fresh oregano, also from my garden. Just strip those leaves off the stem there. Oh, smells so fresh. So good. All right. Yeah, I've added all my fresh leaf spices. And now I've got this fancy immersion blender. It's got its blade in there. This is a great tool for kids. It's pretty safe. You stick that. So let me actually show you what I've done in here in case you can't see that. Oops. So you can see I've added all my fresh stuff. And now my immersion blender goes in. Let me tip that so you can see. And really quickly, we end up with a tomato pasta. Let me just give it some more stir a little bit. And you can leave it chunky if you like it chunky. I like it nice and smooth. I'm going to show it to you because it's basically mostly done for the purposes of this video. Look at how quickly we made a delicious pasta sauce. Hopefully you can see that. So that is literally all you do. And in minutes, we've made heirloom tomato sauce. You can use any type of tomato for this. Even if I have, tiny tomatoes or cherry tomatoes that are left over, I'll even throw those in there. So really, the sky is the limit. And then you could return this to your stove and keep cooking it for a little while if you want it to thicken, and also it will give it a little more robust flavor to just simmer it maybe for 30 minutes more. But you also could really just take it like this and heaven. This is lunch. Thank you so much for watching, and please go to our website. You can donate to support these videos and to support all of our work that we do with kids in Sacramento at foodliteracycenter.org. Thanks for watching.